think, if you've read Confessions of an Economic Hitman, it's basically how the IMF and all these other lending banks, how they, get the developing countries and they basically extort you into this debt slavery.
We can't pay back the debt because you don't collect enough toll, you don't sell enough subway tickets, whatnot, you don't pay it back. What happens?
James Deakin is a legend in Philippine media, a multi-awarded journalist, an automotive expert, and your go-to voice on CNN Philippines. Known for his straight-shooting style and fearless takes on big issues. Whether it's through his influential vlogs or candid commentary, James always cuts straight to the truth. Today, he's joining us to unpack two hot topics Manila can't stop talking about: the bold moves behind the Manila subway project and his honest thoughts on the roller coaster world of crypto investments. Buckle up for an insightful, no-filter conversations. You won't want to miss this.
So, I don't need to emphasize how important this leg of the whole subway was. Obviously, Makati is a central business district here. Probably one of the most important leg of the subway.
Yeah.
Right? And they're not canceling the whole thing, but just this portion. And they just recently announced a cancellation because of a territorial dispute between Makati and Taguig.
Yeah.
And I'm really having a hard time wrapping my head around this. This is supposed to uplift everybody's life, not just in Makati and Taguig, but all the surrounding metro area. And this is going to help people, work and commute, improve their lives, and even up the property values here.
Yep. But there's obviously something political, right? I'm not privy to the exact reason, but you're right. It's shocking to you because you should be coming from a commuter or a taxpayer's point of view. And from a commuter or a taxpayer's point of view, it doesn't make sense. Because whatever internal politics you have or internal problems you have, it shouldn't affect us.
Right.
That's really where we should be. So can you sort out your dirty laundry?
Right.
Yeah, because it doesn't make sense. Now, I know that Makati subway was supposed to be different, it is different from the Metro Manila subway, but obviously these things will link up, and then still you get to move people around Makati. Now we're going to lose that, and you're right. Over a territorial dispute, it doesn't seem right. It's just, why should we be affected by that?
Right, and it's just a matter of you guys coming to an agreement.
Yes, can you sort that out on the back end? It's like, yeah, just please.
And then it reminded me, I was talking to Paulo Alcazarian, and he explained to me that there is no authority with any teeth. The MMDA has no teeth, and they should be the one to be able to tell both parties or both cities to make it work.
In theory, you're correct, but yes, in the way that the power is structured, they don't, because they are appointed by the office of the president. They're not an elected position. So they will always fall under the 17 LGUs and Metro Manila mayors, right? That's where the issue becomes, right? So if one of the mayors says, well, not through my city, MMDA can only strongly suggest, or they can't get, they're powerless against the elected officials. And so that's where it becomes a real problem. Now, we used to have a governor, the governor of Metro Manila, but that has been abolished. So that would have overseen,
right?
But they took that out. There's good arguments both sides, because it's not as simple as like saying, okay, if we had a governor to oversee, it would solve that problem. But other people say solving a problem by adding more government is the last way you want to solve any problem. And I tend to agree with that too.
Right.
But we're in a bit of a quandary, because you are absolutely correct. The way the power is structured, the MMDA can only really just administer.
But then I thought about what you said. And you said the only way to solve this problem is to declare a national emergency.
Yes.
So why doesn't the president just execute an executive order and be like, dude, this is important, get it done?
That's my way of thinking. I think exactly that way. I've always said it for many years, that declare a national state of emergency, whatever the version of traffic is, because it shouldn't matter if it's still affecting the livelihood of people, the health, the mental health of them, their living, their quality of life. If it was anything else, if it was a disease or a foreign enemy, you'd look at it like that. So just why don't we frame it like that? Traffic is a foreign enemy. Just call it that. It is an enemy that needs to be defeated in order to get back that 3.545 billion a day, because that JICA study is already way outdated.
Right.
So it's probably around 5 billion a day that we're losing.
And then if President Marcos says, okay, this is a national emergency, which he can do, right?
Which he can do, yes.
And then what would happen?
Well, that's the devil's in the details there. Of course, it's a lot easier to say than
Right.
do, right? So I would think that you'd have to tighten your belts for a while. It's going to be tough. And that's what I think maybe he's trying to avoid. Politically, it might be a bit of a suicide pill because can you really finish this in one term?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
That's
And
the
if you-
other thing, all
exactly.
the delays and then...
Do you want to be remembered as the president that screwed up everything? Because we will have to suffer for about maybe, I'm thinking, a minimum of 2 or 3 years before we start seeing anything better.
Right.
And no politician wants to touch that because it's like, that's half my term, if not more. And for what? If the next politician will get the credit for it. So why would
Right.
I do that?
Right.
So that's where I think the structure is off. The incentive structure is kind of off there. But what's the alternative? We can't say, let's go for a dictatorship. That's not going to solve the problem either. But you can see why they see the same problem, but it's a matter of let's just kick this can down the road further for the next admin.
Right, but then you said it yourself, like the next administration
We'll
comes
do the same
in,
thing.
Guess what happens? These projects just die.
They die because, yes, they view them as milking cows. They view them as opportunity for them. So if there's another new project, I'm going to get my suppliers. I'm going to get my.
Right.
So
I'm incentivized
Exactly.
when it's my project.
Exactly.
But then when it gets turned over to somebody else, they don't have the incentives.
That's right. Exactly.
To keep it going.
Actually, matter of fact, they have the incentive to destroy what happened previously. So it actually
so that it goes into their direction.
Exactly.
And is that what happened with the Makati and Taguig thing?
I wouldn't.
Because here's the thing. I mean, if you do it, if you research it, I started researching. I'm like, okay, why would that happen? And then I asked, well, when did this territorial dispute happen? It's been going on for decades.
It's been a long time.
Right. And so if I'm the company, and this is foreign funded, by the way, right? This is private public funding.
Yes.
Right. And so if you're a company funding this, you're going to do your due diligence. And so you're going to propose to build a subway on disputed land. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't, yeah.
And so this was supposed to be completed this year. And then the territorial dispute was settled like sometime last year or something like that, 2023 or 2024, when they said, okay, well, this belongs to GIG now. And then it all falls apart. And it falls apart at the last minute. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm just trying to understand why wasn't there a level of due diligence to say, okay, well, if this project might not go through, then we shouldn't fund this project.
You're correct in your thinking, and I'm not privy to the ins and outs of what happened there, but just based on my own 2 eyes and experience and stuff, it seems like there was that territorial dispute that Makati's not going to spend money that Taguig will get either revenue for, or how they divide that revenue. I can imagine that's a big part of the problem for them. But why should it affect us? You're correct in that thinking. It shouldn't affect us. And you're right, if it was a private business, they would do due diligence and they would not build on unsettled land. They would have to settle that first. But it seems that we tend to do this a lot because even the Metro Manila subway is being held up by right-of-way. And you'd think we're already broken ground. This project started in 2010. It was green lighted in 2010. It was officially announced, 2012. And then they started building 2018. And then in 2025, you're going to say we have right-of-way issues? Right. That's where it's a little bit, yes. I mean, call me silly, call me simple, but wouldn't you have solved this before you started digging?
100%. No company or no country, a foreign country especially, is going to invest in this without the proper due diligence.
Yes, so you can't help but wonder, and I'm not really the type that just always thinks of a conspiracy, but you have to wonder, is there something else that we're not told here? Because it doesn't make sense. I just can't sort of accept that as a logical explanation that you're going to have a 500 billion peso project that's funded by international money and private party.
Yeah.
So it's a combination, right? It's a hybrid. Suitomo, and then we've got our public funds in there as well. And then to all of a sudden think, oh, sorry, we've got right-of-way issues. It's like that. And the blueprint went through there. It didn't just happen, right? Somebody didn't just buy that property and say, now you've got... No.
Right. And then they make this announcement, it's canceled because territorial dispute, and we're just supposed to accept it, and everyone quietly goes away.
But just to be sure, clear that these are two separate projects. I mean, just in case people confuse the two, Makati subway and the Metro Manila subway is two completely different things. But you're right, the principle is still the same. You know, why would you do this? Now, the Metro Manila subway, they have just passed an amendment to the law. So they had to go through Congress and Senate, and it just got passed. And then right now, as we do this podcast, it's sitting or heading to the president's desk.
What was the amendment to the law?
You know, I asked exactly, can you tell me what the amendment was? I mean, what are you doing differently that you didn't do in the Skyway, or because you had the same problems with the Skyway? They can't tell me exactly what those amendments are, but they assure me that those amendments will fix these right-of-ways.
Isn't that weird that there's no transparency about these
Well,
laws?
yeah, I would want. That's why I was as early as like a few hours before this podcast. I was doubling down. I was just checking my messages to see if I have.
Right.
There's no. I specifically asked, can you just share with me that one? What exactly was that amendment? We should know, right? I mean, it's gone through both houses. Don't tell me nobody knows what's in that amendment. What are you doing differently? What are you solving in there that will help in the future? Because it shouldn't just be the subway. We can't keep having these problems. I mean, the Skyway was built and stalled because of this. And it was only because when Mark Villar came in, he was very aggressive with that. Like, he spent all his time on the right-of-way issues, and he was able to solve it. But I don't know if you've driven the Skyway. Yeah. I mean, you can you drive past and, you know, like, you're this close to some people's windows, right?
Yeah.
There's some buildings that are just, like, scarily close. I mean, I know Tokyo has also a similar type of, but this is like eerily close. Like, you can see people showering type of thing. It's weird. But
now we know what you're looking for when you're driving through the Skyway.
Distracted driving. But you can see what I mean. It's like, okay, well, they were able to make it work, but you can see in the design they had to compromise and stuff. So they're trying to solve this for the Metro Manila subway. I think what baffles me is 2025, we're trying to solve the right-of-way issues. It's 15 years after the plan. 2012 was the announcement. That's a long time.
Right.
You can't just sort of say this snuck up on you.
So what happens to all the funding that went into it when they canceled this project?
Well, okay, again, that's the Makati one.
I remember you saying somebody profits off this inefficiency and these traffic.
Usually that's my go-to theory, is that, you know, somebody's profiting off the chaos and the inefficiency. In the case of the Makati Taguig thing, I'm again not privy, so I would only be guessing. But I would think that would be really down to territorial disputes. I mean, there's really a political issue there that they're just not going to invest. I think something that another city will get either revenue from or benefit from without actually paying it. So without that. But it still doesn't answer the question, why didn't you do this before you broke ground and before you released this to the public and got our hopes up? Because it weakens you it does shatter our confidence moving forward. And we're now, you know, skeptical whether this Metro Manila subway will solve the problem because of that. You related to this.
Is that thing going to cancel
exactly,
the big one, right?
Exactly. But, you know, they assured me as early as, you know, a few hours ago, they assured me that this new amendments, that will help a lot, not just with the subway, but even with New Clark City, because that's where they're going. That's where the North-South Rail will go.
It must be an amendment to the rules of politics. That's the only way you're going to solve it. It's the rules of politics.
I don't know if maybe they've gone... And again, these are guesses because I can't get the answers. You know, there's a 50-meter, I think, or 40-meter right-of-way that goes down. So you own like 40 meters below. So they're going 47 meters now.
Okay.
That's like...
to bypass that?
It seems like it, yeah, because that seems to be one way to bypass the right-of-way is go a little bit deeper.
That's so
47,
crazy.
yeah.
That's so funny.
But
we got to do a little infographic on this. Like, they do a 47, it's up to 45 meters where they could build a subway. But then in order to bypass this, they go down 47 meters and it's like,
welcome to the Metro Manila roller coaster.
That's so crazy.
Whoa!
Yeah, that's so
down.
crazy.
Well, yeah, but then again, I'm not, they haven't actually shared the official reason.
Or could this be like a dog and pony show? I mean, could this be just a ploy? I mean, did they really cancel it? Maybe they're just using this as a bargaining chip.
With the Makati Taguig thing, it seems pretty final. You know, I don't see that being a bargaining chip, but I could be wrong. But I don't see it as that. I think it looks pretty final. Like, no, over our dead body. If we're gonna not get that resolution that Makati, this belongs to Makati and that belongs to Taguig, we're not doing this project.
That's so disappointing. It's almost like you kind of wish there was something like a president like Trump that comes in and says, no, you guys have to do it. We're going to declare a national emergency and create all these executive orders and stuff. But then we had something like Duterte. So that was like, that was pretty crazy too. So maybe that's a bad idea.
I see where you're going with it, but you see, I mean, not to get too overly controversial with it, but if he was able to do that with drugs, you know.
Right. Exactly.
You see, now, there was a lot of controversy there. A lot of people felt weird about that. But traffic is universally, everyone hates it. So it's the kind of thing that you could, if you did have a strongman that said, this is what we're going to do it, this is the amount of pain we're going to go through, but I guarantee you after this, we will fix it. I think people would do it. But you can't solve it on its own like that. I've always felt that you really need to incentivize people moving out because you're trying to renovate a house you're currently living in. Mm-hmm. How much can you really renovate, right? Exactly. You're just doing decorative stuff, surface stuff. If you really want to start really fixing it, we got to get them out, and nobody wants to move out.
But in order to get it out, you need transit that makes sense to go back into the central area because that's where everything is so concentrated.
True. Yes.
You need. I mean, sure, you want to talk about urban sprawl. The only reason why Alabang works is because of that Skyway.
Yes.
Without that,
it was horrible.
No one would be buying. Alabang wouldn't be what it is today.
Well, I remember going down there pre-Skyway, and it was absolute hell. I mean, my mom lived there in the 90s, and I came for a visit back then, and it was pure hell. I remember thinking, how on earth do people live like this? I couldn't wrap my head around it because it was still being built at the time. Now, I live in Alabang.
Well, the property values wasn't nearly what it is now, right? But once they put the Skyway in.
I remember my mom bought there at 90 pesos a square meter.
Holy cow.
That's 90. But of course, we're talking about early 80s, maybe late 70s when it first, like 90. And they sold at 100 and they're like rejoicing. It's 250,000 now per square meter. So it went
from 90 pesos per square meter to 250,000
pesos per square meter in that same village.
Holy crap.
But they sold at 100, so they made.
Wow.
Not 100,000.
That might be better than your Bitcoin investment. But yeah, anyways, so I haven't lived in Manila all of my life, right? And I haven't lived in the Philippines all of my life. There are big infrastructure projects like this that get canceled, correct?
Yeah, what are some that come to mind? Yes, I'm sure there are. There has been. I can't think of one immediately, but yes, sometimes these things do just hit a stumbling block and stop.
So the one question I asked Paulo was like, does the Philippines need foreign investment to build their own infrastructure?
It's a faster way of doing it, I would think. That's probably the only advantage. But if you're asking me, like, fundamentally, I don't believe it's right because I think we pay enough taxes to be able to get these services back without a private partnership. I'm just against the idea of paying road tax and MVUSC and all these motor vehicle user charges and all this, and then having to pay toll. And what I resent even more than paying toll is lining up to pay toll. So you're creating traffic to avoid the traffic. So you have to sit through this traffic at the tollways because their RFIDs don't work properly and they're very slow. It's like the oldest technology. I don't know why they're still using it. And we have to pay for that privilege, not just in money, but also in time and traffic, just getting through that bottleneck of the tolls.
I don't know the numbers, but I believe there should be enough tax money to pay for their own infrastructure projects.
There should be, absolutely.
Especially something like this.
Yes.
And then you get funding from countries like Japan, Korea, and a lot of it has been China.
Yes.
And I was thinking, okay, isn't this kind of worrisome? Because this comes in debt.
And it's,
So when they get canceled, when these projects get canceled and there's money lost, that debt still needs to be repaid.
I would imagine so, yeah. Like
Right.
if you were to cancel this $500 billion peso project, and Sumitomo and JICA have lent you the money, I don't think that just disappears. I don't think it's just like, sorry, we changed our mind.
Otherwise, they wouldn't keep funding it.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's been a couple of canceled infrastructure projects. Why would they keep funding it unless there's some guarantee they're going to get paid back?
Yes, and also I think if you've read Confessions of an Economic Hitman, you'll know that whole.
No. How
Oh,
does
you've
it work?
never? Oh, wow.
No. Can you explain?
Oh man, that's a rabbit hole and a half. I mean, it's basically how the IMF and all these other lending banks, whether it's through countries or the IMF, how they basically get the developing countries and they basically extort you into this debt slavery. They
So
put
what
you into
happens?
debt
So
slavery.
they walk me through this. So another country like the IMF or another country comes in and loans the money that you don't need because you have enough taxpayer money to fund this, but you're taking on debt to fund this.
Exactly.
Right? Okay, well, we do this in business, right? We have funds to fund it, but we'll take debt because it makes sense.
Yes.
Because the interest rates, we're leveraging up, blah, blah, blah. So they take debt. We can't pay back the debt because you don't collect enough toll, you don't sell enough subway tickets, whatnot. You don't pay it back. What happens?
Well, for me, all goes back to like central banks, right? They need to get these developing countries onto the debt slavery wheel, right? So they tell them that, hey, you need to expand. It makes perfect sense, right? Like in business, you need to expand. You need to build bridges and roads and ports and whatever, airports, just to create this economic activity. And then they'll lend you that money, and then knowing full well that you may not be able to pay that back. And then they do one of two things: either you're completely, you're in that debt slavery, or they just seize the ports. They were doing this in Africa, super
China's
popular.
been doing this.
China and Africa have this history,
Right.
and not just Africa and China, but yes, China was doing this all around the world.
So China's recent strategy is this Belt and Road
Yes,
Initiative,
yes,
right?
yeah.
And so they're going out to all the developing countries and loaning them tons of money.
Tons of money.
Tons of money in Africa, tons of money in South America, in Laos, in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
In Sri Lanka, they couldn't pay back their debt for the port.
Yes,
so
they
China
took it
took it
that
over.
was famous
on
for,
a
yeah.
99-year takeover. So then now they have a strategic asset.
And not just did they have a strategic asset, they made a fortune off the building of it because they lent them the money, but they provided them the services as well.
Right.
They even provide the manpower.
Right. So it has to be done through Chinese construction supplies and their contractors.
Exactly.
It's smart. They're fueling their economy, right? So
It's perfect. Like if you could run a business this way, you would be like a monopoly. You would just make so much money
Right.
out of this. So I'm going to lend you the money to renovate your apartment, but I'm going to be the one renovating the apartment, and I know that you can't afford this. So I'm later going to take that
your
apartment
property.
too. Yeah. So I've won in every single,
Right.
and it's all for the lure of cheap money because the rates are low, etc. But they know this is how they do it. This is what El Salvador did brilliantly, I thought. They stood up to the IMF and they said, instead of borrowing money off you, we're going to start investing in Bitcoin, and we're going to start doing volcano bonds. We're going to attract investment through Bitcoin. So they said zero capital gains tax, zero crypto tax, zero property tax, zero income tax.
and you can mine it from the volcano,
Yes.
from the electricity.
Yeah, exactly. Buy the volcano bonds, and you're part of that volcano energy.
Brilliant.
It's brilliant. And so the IMF started panicking, and they started saying, of course, the mainstream media went on there, did what mainstream media does. They were the propaganda arms of all these companies, or central banks and IMFs, and they're all rubbishing El Salvador, saying that there's going to be the worst country, it's going to just tank and all this. What did they do? They got rid of all their criminals. They're now one of the safest countries,
Right.
not just in Latin America,
Exactly.
but all around the world. They rank up there. They're safer than most U.S. cities now.
Well, this isn't an old playbook. Like Dubai has done it. Hong Kong
Yes.
has done this. Right? I mean, recently, like I told you, I've invested in the Portuguese Gold Visa, and Portugal pretty much renovated after their '08 crash, but invited investors through
But
the
they're
Golden
inviting
Visa.
private investors. Yes.
Right.
Yes. That works. You see, because you're still in control. When you borrow off the IMF, though, you're now. It's not just the money. They want a say in your politics. They want a say in your
And this is how they
laws.
buy influence.
This is how they buy influence.
So isn't
exactly.
this the same? Isn't this what China's doing? Aren't they buying influence in the
Absolutely.
Philippines?
Absolutely. I would say absolutely.
And then the current administration, after this administration, it's somebody else's problem.
It's somebody else's problem, exactly. And then at the end of the day, what I feel really sore about is it's the end user that has to pay for this all the time. It's us. It's us.
right. We got to pay for it in our
We
taxes.
do. We do.
Right. And taxes aren't cheap here in the Philippines.
They're not cheap at all. They're very expensive. I remember watching one of your clips about the capital gains and then the VAT and then it's a terrible investment, really.
Right.
It doesn't. This is why we're going through an oversupply of condos, because it's finally hit this peak, and people are realizing it. And I learned from your video, you were explaining the differences with the U.S. and how their structures are. You can leverage up, and here we don't have that same thing. So it's just becoming a less and less attractive investment.
Right.
And I haven't been able to sell one of my apartments for years.
Me too.
I don't even get nibbles on it.
Me too. I haven't got an offer. Keep dropping the price, but no offer.
Yeah, I dropped us. You can find out what the last one sold for, whatever. I dropped it to lower than that. Not even a nibble.
No, yeah. In other countries, you feel like the banks are your partner and the local government's your partner.
Yeah.
Because the bank's partner, they take the risk with you by financing the property. The local government's partners with you because they give you the tax incentive because they want you to funnel the money into development. The more you develop the land or area, the property's value go up, which then they collect more property taxes and they put more of that into schools and then it ups the value. So you have two very strong partners. I don't feel like we have that partner here.
No, I don't think it's structured in the same way. You're correct. I don't feel the same way about it. And then when we talk about like the foreign investment and stuff, I mean like that bridge, that Rockwell Bridge, that's a Chinese project. And they do, I mean, it's working well for now, but I don't know where we are in terms of repaying that. It's just when you end up not being able to pay for that, you end up having to give back not just sometimes your assets, but control over your country.
Right, and that's
the
scary thing.
That's why they call it economic confessions of an economic hitman, because they impose these loans on you because they know that that's how they control you.
So are the leaders here in the Philippines, are they aware of this?
I would hope they are. I mean, there's been a lot of concern over the borrowing of Chinese, so it's not something that is not spoken about. At least I'll give credit to the average Filipino. This conversation comes up a lot. They're aware of this.
Oh, they are.
They are. They're not like completely walking around clueless. They're concerned about over borrowing and these public-private partnerships getting out of hand. But yeah, it still happens. I mean, and we got to be very careful.
Is anything going to be done about this? I mean, you still have hope for...
I still have hope, of course, because our economy is growing a lot. So I do see a lot of runway left for the Philippines, especially where we have the opportunity to grow this middle class out. And that should be... So there's a lot of hope.
So this is just part of the growing pains of a developing
Yes,
country.
but there are forks in that road, right? When you're growing, and if they take the wrong fork, then
Go backwards.
Yes, you'll go backwards because there are equal forces. Sorry to sound so negative, but I've just seen it too many times. There are equal forces out there that are trying to extract and extort. These are not constructive things; these are destructive things.
I didn't see a lot of like media or content talking about this as a problem.
I didn't see it either until I started doing my Bitcoin journey. This is what opened my eyes to all of this. Before that, I was completely clueless. I had zero idea how this all worked. And I thought that when IMFs and BIS and stuff like that were loaning money, I thought they were just good people. That's how naive I was. And then you start to see how it works. And then you start to see where the money comes from. It comes from nothing. It's made up. Right? It's a debt-based economy. So this IMF doesn't actually have that money. They just put it on their computer.
Right. And the worst part is you're borrowing in their currency sometimes.
Exactly, which they have full control over.
Right. And so what happens when you can't inflate your
You
way
can't.
out of paying this?
They're the issuer of that currency.
Right.
Exactly. That scares me to high heavens because they can now inflate it. That's what they do, right?
Right.
And so they can debase their currency, and now you're forced to pay that back in your own currency, they keep just growing and you keep just starving.
Right.
So the game is completely rigged.
Well, the thing is, it puts you in this trap that you can't print your own currency to pay off debts like the U.S. does.
Yes.
U.S. debt is getting too big where they have to continuously print new money in order to pay that off.
Yes.
And the more they print it, the more they're able to pay it off.
Yes, because they're basically inflating their debt away.
Right.
So, in fact, what I think is happening right now with the U.S., how they're structuring it, just based on my limited understanding of it with Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick and all that, what they're doing is I think they are migrating to a new system. They're preparing all the rails for a brand new system, which is crypto, and Bitcoin is going to be a huge part of that.
That was exciting.
Yes. Now, if they're going to, they're in a unique position where they can buy a hard asset with fake money. Not everyone can do that.
You know what? The thing that was like, I had question marks. It was a huge announcement that they were going to make it. They were going to create a reserve for Bitcoin, a strategic reserve, like they do with oil and stuff like that, right? But then I was like, okay, is it really a reserve? Is it going to be like the gold standard? And how are they going to protect the dollar? Because at the end of the day, they still need to make sure the dollar is dominant.
Correct. And Trump has always been very strong about that. It's like when they asked him before this thing about Bitcoin, he said, my number one concern is the dollar, right? So it has to remain the reserve currency. But you can want all you like, but writing's on the wall and reality is reality. It slaps hard. So he's probably been shown the blueprint and said, sir, this is what we're dealing. I know you want this, but 37 trillion in debt, okay, with a 2 trillion deficit per year, we're not going to be able to pay this debt, right? So here is a possible solution, is we use our fake money, because we're using fake money to buy, basically they're buying the debt with new debt that they issue, right? They're buying their own debt, which is ridiculous. They just paid another 10 billion they bought back of bonds.
Right, and they keep debasing
it in order to pay it back. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, that Ponzi, because that is a Ponzi, right? It's going to eventually catch up with them. So if they stop buying their own debt, but they started printing money and buying Bitcoin, and that's a hard asset with a limited supply, then if they're careful, it's not super easy to do, but if they're careful and they know what they're doing, and Bessent knows what he's doing because he bet against the pound. He shorted the pound with Soros, and that's where they made all their money.
Right.
So they know this game. So if they're able to just buy Bitcoin with the money that they're printing, and they're careful and they're just monitoring it, eventually what they'll do is eventually hyperinflate. But if they're careful about how much Bitcoin they can get, they can probably get to a level of Bitcoin that when they hyperinflate, that can pay off the 37 trillion.
Right.
You see, because you're swapping fake money for...
And once they pay it off, it stabilizes the dollar.
There you go. Now, how else can they stabilize the dollar? The Genius Act just came out.
The only way you can do it is to buy back your currency.
And how are they doing that? Because nobody wants their currency anymore, right?
Well, that was the problem with all these tariffs talk. Like all these countries stopped buying the dollars.
They also don't want
the T-bond. People stop buying the T-bond. Interest rates go up.
Yes, but people think that that's a shitty investment because they're saying to themselves, "Why would I lend the U.S. government, money over 10 years, over what 5% or 4%?"
Because the U.S. government has never defaulted on this, and nor will they.
But there's still better investments out there than getting 4 or 5%.
There always has been.
And they're starting to get degraded. They just got lowered again in the credit rating.
Right.
So people are now seeing this is not the safe haven it once promised us. Because that's all, you're correct. It's always been the safest bet. But now people are questioning whether that's the safest bet. They've never defaulted, but it looks like they could, right? So they're now looking at other things. And now the U.S. government are asking with this Genius Act, they're including the stablecoin bill. And the stablecoin bill is actually quite genius, no pun intended, because those guys have to buy treasuries.
Exactly.
And if you have a world economy and the demand is denominated in U.S. dollars, now all of a sudden Tether, which is worth how many billions, I mean, it's really a great business model. They just have to buy those treasury bonds now. They're creating their own customer to buy
Before
that
they
debt.
couldn't do this? Because you couldn't take the stable. I don't think you could legally take the stable coins and buy it in any other financial asset. You have to have
a medium of
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Right. You had to have a reserve.
And that's why Tether moved out. Tether is not based in the United States.
Right.
So that's why they were saying we should court these people back. Ripple,
Right.
Tether. They want to be the crypto capital of the world.
Make them buy
Make them-
stable coins stable coins. When they sell stable coins,
They have to have a
basically
reserve
buy
treasury.
T-bonds.
That's correct.
As a reserve.
You create demand for
Amazing, yeah.
It's amazing. So it's amazing because this is the lucrative business now. Because what they're asking, they were asking banks to do that. Banks have to do that.
But there's also one more aspect to it. When you transfer into a stable coin or a Bitcoin, or you on-ramp, off-ramp, you're on-ramping on US dollars. All the stable coins are all US dollar based.
Yes, and they're linked to your treasury
Right.
bonds, not their own reserves. Before, like Tether could have their own type of reserve. Now you can just
Right.
come here. We're friendly. We're welcoming you. This is one thing they need a lot of credit for the crypto community is they created this system where it's like America will be the leader now in crypto.
Right.
And they're creating this demand. So Tether has to have a liquid supply in. They have to back it up with their reserves in treasury bonds.
James, you understand the importance of liquidity.
Oh,
Right?
yes, I
We're
do.
talking
Now
about
I
this.
do.
We're understanding. I've been trying to harp on this, and this is what really disappoints me about the Philippines. The U.S. gets it. They understand that by driving liquidity in, it protects the
Exactly.
value of the dollar. Again, it all comes down to the same fundamental: supply and demand. When you sell, you're losing. When you're selling, or nobody wants to buy your currency or your T-bonds, you have an oversupply.
correct.
It drops your value. If
I'm-
everybody wants to buy your shit, you have an undersupply. It raises your value. Liquidity is important, and I wish the Philippines would look at how do we bring more liquidity in this country in the right way.
I relate to exactly what you're saying in real estate because, I thought I was okay until I tried to sell it and realized there's no liquidity in that market for that particular unit.
That's why we've
right?
been holding on to the property because
Yes.
it's so difficult.
Yes.
If someone came to you and said, "Hey, I'm going to buy your property off a bank loan," there's a good chance you might say, "Fuck off. I don't want your deal.
Yeah.
Only cash."
Yeah,
A lot of people do.
yeah.
And it's because of various reasons. You're going to lock up your property for 3 months. There's so many issues.
Yeah.
You may not be able, somebody else might come and buy it. So there's a lot of issues with liquidity.
Yes. And I think now that banks have been allowed to custody Bitcoin, that's a big change too. I think that's also part of the bill.
What bank is allowing custody for
The
Bitcoin?
U.S. They've just allowed it.
So you're saying they're gonna insure it?
Yes, it's SAB 121 rule. Is that what it is? SAB 121. So what it is, basically, before this ruling, accounting rules said that if you were a bank and you custodied crypto like Bitcoin, you had to have an equal amount in dollar reserves for that. There's no way that makes sense because in a fractional reserve banking system, they're only keeping 5 to 10% of what you put in, and that's their obligation. And then you're telling them they have to keep 100% of what somebody. If I deposited $1 million in Bitcoin, they have to keep $1 million in cash, locked in again. There's like just banks are like, no, why would I do that? So now they're saying no. Now you don't have to. You can work on the value of the Bitcoin, and you can keep it like you don't have to keep that cash reserve.
For people who don't understand why custody is important, if the bank has the custody of your Bitcoin, that means you assume it's safe. But
Yeah.
in any other exchange that has the custody of your Bitcoin,
It's not your keys.
if it gets hacked,
not your keys,
it's
not
gone,
your cheese. Yeah.
right? So if the bank is saying we're gonna take custody of it, it's like we're taking custody of your checking deposits or
Yeah.
your safety deposit, and we're gonna insure it if someone robs
Yes.
it.
Yes, exactly. So, but they wouldn't do it before because of those accounting rules. But now that they don't have to keep a liquid reserve in actual US dollars, they can custody it. And there are some people that are more comfortable, even though that's not how Bitcoin was designed. You're really supposed to take self-custody of it. But some companies are just like, I don't need the hassle.
It does make sense because like I don't like to talk about that. I don't know how you feel so comfortable talking about it.
You know, when we talk about traffic and broken systems, I can't help but think about how the same thing happens with money transfers. The system is built in a way where a huge chunk of your money gets lost in fees. Nala is trying to fix that. It's a money transfer app that lets you send money home to the Philippines with no hidden fees and some of the best exchange rates out there. It's already trusted by over 500,000 people globally, making it faster and fairer for Filipinos abroad. Download Nala today and use code JOHNDANG to get $20 back when you send $50.
I don't know. I've learned a lot about it now. I mean, I'm just sharing what I know. And
Well, what I'm saying is like there is risk in actually holding your Bitcoin and holding your keys.
by yourself.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of people who get robbed.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, held hostage for this stuff.
I mean, when you say hold it yourself, you can
Yeah.
put that in a safety deposit box.
Sure.
In a bank.
Sure.
They don't have access to it, but the keys are there.
Right.
And then nobody knows where those keys are and what bank you've got it in.
Right.
Yes, because you should never say where you keep your
course.
keys. But yes, the banks now. If with this change in ruling, if you can put Bitcoin into a bank, you can borrow against it. You couldn't do that before because it's now legitimate as an asset that the bank can actually custody for you. So that means you can unlock the liquidity of it, and that's going to change the game again for Bitcoin.
James, I don't know if you know this, but I actually searched who are the top influencers for OFWs, and you came up on that list.
I didn't know that.
You didn't even know that,
No,
did you?
no. Am I a wanted man? Do I owe anyone money out there? I'm sorry. Okay.
No, but so like a lot of OFWs actually pay attention to what you say.
Well, I'm very flattered. That's really flattering.
So I wanted to ask you, what do you think about, in context of Bitcoin, what would be your advice to these OFWs?
I would love to. I mean, not financial advice. You always have to have that disclaimer, right?
Because like, look, we boast about all these OFW remittances every quarter, right? And it's a big part of GDP. So OFWs are sending tons of money here. I have to think, one, the cost is pretty big, and then there's a lot of risks to this.
There's
too.
a lot of risk, and now there's new taxes involved in remittances being introduced because it's too big. It's too big a market.
Can you tell us about this this remittance tax? Because a lot of people don't know about this.
Well, I don't know the details of it. I know that they're planning to introduce it. I just don't know where they're planning to introduce it, but they're planning to introduce it. And it doesn't surprise me that they would because, again, there's just so much money there. So to avoid that, what I would advise them, and this is just not financial advice because I'm not a financial expert, but this is what I would do. I can only tell you what I would do. I would rather save in Bitcoin, and that way it's a universal international asset. It's pristine. So anywhere you go, you don't know if you're an OFW in Dubai that might be repatriated back here or go to Saudi or another. You don't have to change your bank accounts. You don't have to apply for new. This is your savings, right?
Let's give these OFWs context. They might not have context about this.
Okay.
So we're talking about applying some sort of income tax, whether it's VAT or income tax, to your remittances. This is something you never had to pay before. If you were a U.S. citizen and you were getting remittances to you, you would have to pay taxes in any other country.
Really?
But the nice thing about being Filipino here, you can
Yes.
get remittances from your OFW, which is nice.
Well,
it's a nice tax
and it's
advantage.
also our economy is almost based on it too, right? So
and you have family members who can't make an opportunity to work here, and they have to go overseas to make enough money to send back here to take care of kids, cousins, whatnot.
yes, exactly.
And sure, make it tax-free.
It should be tax-free.
But now they're talking about taxing it.
Yes, not necessarily the Philippines. I don't believe the Philippines is doing that. I just heard that the U.S. is going to start looking into that, if not already doing it, on their side. So like you just have to pay another tax before you send it out.
So
not necessarily
they're
here.
taxing the Americans
Yes.
for money they're sending out.
Correct. Not the ones receiving here, because I can't imagine that they would do that here. That would kill the economy here. And it's we're very sensitive to anything that's anti-poor.
Well, in the U.S., you have up to $10,000, $10,000 or $15,000 as a gift tax. So I can give my daughter $10,000 or $15,000 a year without paying any taxes. Anything more than that, she's gonna have to pay taxes for that. So how does that work for this one?
How does it work with you talking about using Bitcoin or
No. With
Oh,
remittances.
I don't know exactly how it works. I'm not the expert there because I've never really been in that situation where I'm remitting back. I live here, and I make my money here.
Right.
But I do know that even without these taxes that I don't really understand, and every country would have their own different way. What I do know is that you're paying a lot of fees that you shouldn't have to pay.
I wouldn't be surprised because recently they are talking about taxing freelancers of VAT, right? It kind of makes sense. These are a lot of freelancers here that are making money overseas and they're not paying taxes on it. And they're talking about charging them a VAT on that. Well, if you're going to do that, what's going to stop you from charging people for sending remittances?
I know. I just wish taxation could just be a lot simpler. I just wish we could just go on consumption tax and be done with it. You know, that way you can really choose what you're spending your taxes on. Meaning, like, it shouldn't be. I hate the way it's done now, where you're taxed when you earn, you're taxed when you spend it, you're taxed when you own it. So you're buying a apartment with money that was taxed, and then the government will tax you again for that purchase. When you buy it, you have to pay separate taxes, and then you have to pay a tax every year.
But in other systems, in other countries, you can, if you're smart enough and you're savvy enough, you can probably get away with paying a lot of taxes. Because here's how it works. Like I said, the government is your partner. If your government encourages you to spend or invest in a certain way based on their tax policies. So in most countries, there's always ways to write off your taxes, to exempt in certain areas, like real estate.
Yes.
Real estate is the biggest tax exemption. It's probably one of the biggest reasons why people stay so invested in real estate.
You're talking
like
U.S., right?
In the U.S., in
Not-
Japan, in Europe, in a lot
Not
of different
necessarily
countries,
here,
but
right?
not here.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. That's what I find. That's what I learned from one of your podcasts is that we don't have that same system here, which is why I find it such an unattractive investment already. So now I would advise, at least this is what I would do. So take it with your own situation. But if you can save in Bitcoin,
Okay.
eventually, if you save enough, like you would, instead of buying an apartment, you buy Bitcoin and you get to 1 Bitcoin, which is about the price of, let's say, well, that's not even one apartment, right? Eventually, you could just borrow against that Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
If there's enough of it. And then you're not taxed on what you borrow.
Right.
So borrow against
But
it.
you're going to pay the interest on it.
Yes, but it's only like 6%.
That only makes sense if you're using the money to make money. Right? Because you use the money to make money, and the money you make pays the interest, and you net the difference. But if you're having to come out of your pocket to pay a debt, then that's the problem.
Okay, but if you're borrowing against your Bitcoin, just the nice, rough, easy figures, right? Let's say you're borrowing $1,000 a month against your Bitcoin. Yes, you're paying 6%, but what would you be paying if you were cashing out that Bitcoin? What's the taxes on that?
Like 20%.
Exactly.
Let's say, right?
So you're kind of, you can see
You're also assuming that Bitcoin is continuously climbing in value.
That's
so
something
you
you
can
have to
always
watch out
borrow
for.
more and more on
Yes.
the Bitcoin, and you'll be fine because, again, it's all like the inflating your currency to pay.
Yes, but you have to get to a critical mass there first.
Right.
You can get caught out. So there are situations where you can get caught out because if you're borrowing and then your Bitcoin's going down, your loan to value ratio might get to a point where you're liquidated.
Right.
So you cannot. It's not a good strategy to have until you have a decent
Enough,
and that you're not borrowing absolutely any more than 50%.
Let's use this example. I'm an OW. I start making some money, some discretionary income for the first time in my life.
Okay.
I start buying crypto and Bitcoin. I buy Bitcoin because it's the safest.
Bitcoin, yeah.
Now, I need to send money back to my family in the Philippines. What do I do? What do I do with this Bitcoin? Can I send this Bitcoin to them? And how are they going to handle this?
Okay, you can do that. You can send, one option is you can send them a little Bitcoin. That's peer to peer. So that no intermediary involved with that, which is great. So you can send your family a peer-to-peer Bitcoin, and then they can go to any exchange here, like Coins.ph or there are a number, Moneybees.
But there is a fee to that.
There's a little fee. Yes, there is a fee.
Actually, when I realized when I was buying crypto from the exchanges and stuff, it's not cheap.
No, their spread is pretty high, especially local exchanges. Their spread is very high. And a guy called Luis Buenaventura explains it very well.
Yeah,
Why?
I know Luis.
You know Luis? He explains that reason why local exchanges are very high.
Why?
I can't remember. I'm not as good as him in explaining it. So I would suggest that if you can get him on the show.
Oh, he's coming on. I told him.
And then you thought this was really fascinating to me. Why it's because I was like, why that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the spread is really high. Let him explain why. But there are ways around it. For example, okay, you could send a little bit of Bitcoin to somebody, but you're correct. You will lose a little bit in the fees and stuff.
Now compare that to the
Western
Western Union
Unions,
remittance.
etc.
How much does Western Union charge? For
It's a lot. I can't remember the exact fee, but everyone's complaining about it. They find it usurious, so they tend to not want to go it that way. So what you could do is you could also, if you are the primary supporter, right, you could borrow against your Bitcoin and send them the USDT or PHP, because they have PHP now and coins.ph.
Right.
Now, if you were to do that, let's say take a loan out of $500 or $1,000 or whatever your relative needs, and then you send that to your relative in USDT. It's only a matter of cents that you can use any of these different rails that cost you less than $1.
So can I do this if I'm an OFW? I just start buying crypto or Bitcoin. I either keep it in my account or I put it into the account name of my family member I want to remit to. And I said, don't touch this. There's a platform in the Philippines where you can borrow against the Bitcoin. And so you're just loaning against that.
Theoretically correct. I just wouldn't do that. I would take charge of it. I wouldn't give it my keys to somebody else but theoretically you're on the right track. It's like you become your own bank.
Right.
Assuming, of course, again, you've got enough there, because you don't want to be borrowing at more than, I would say, 50% tops. That's loan to value ratio. Because if you do have a drawdown, like a sudden drawdown, like there's a war, we've seen tariffs have affected it. Overnight, you can lose 20%. If you are sagad, you're right there on that limit, and you borrowed 87% or something like that. One little drawdown could liquidate you, and there's no phone call, there's no loan officer. It's just smart contract. It's gone.
Right.
So you don't want to do that. So
don't
how
wanna
I
touch
would
it too
do it,
much,
if I was sending money back, is I would have my Bitcoin as my collateral. That's my savings account. I'm just going to put everything that I can save into that amount and then borrow against it. And then you borrow against it. So let's say it's $500 you need to send that month. You borrow against it, send that $500 in USDT. It'll cost you cents, less than that, right? Because it's so many different rails for USDT. They can then transfer that into Philippine pesos. You lose a little bit in the conversion, but nothing more than you would lose in any other, I guess, exchange, right? So you're going to have to pay something, but it's minimal. Then they can survive on that. Then you just pay off your loan, because your loan, you can get it for about 6% per annum, and it's charged daily. And there's no penalties because these are all smart contracts.
Right.
So you can just pay it off like, okay, I'll just pay it off in my local currency.
Versus the loans that people get on the street here.
Which are 20%.
For like predatory loans.
It's 5-6 is 20%.
Again, it's like the IMF, like the loans that you
Absolutely.
get here. They're not designed for you to pay it back. They're designed to take your home.
Absolutely, exactly, and it's usurious, and that is just what we want to avoid. That's why all these financial products are coming up, to be able to address that, because it's only the poorest of the poor that are exploited, because they have no choice. But crypto democratizes this, or should I say Bitcoin democratizes this. This is why I'm so for it. And then when you find out that you can unlock your liquidity in Bitcoin, all of a sudden it changes the investment profile of it. Because before, when I first got into Bitcoin, it was money you can willing to park for the rest of, let's say, 10 years, 5 years, nothing shorter than 5 years. That was my attitude towards it, which meant I need to make sure I can still eat before that matures. I'm not going to touch it.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, oh, wait. You can actually borrow against it, so you can unlock liquidity without losing your position. Again, you got to be very careful. This is not a hack in the matrix, a glitch in the matrix that you're going to make free money. Of course not. Everything, you just have to be very careful about how much loan to value ratio you keep an eye on that. But unlocking the liquidity changes the game.
Exactly. So I want to try to help people wrap their head around something, and we're going to try to attempt to explain this for those who don't know. We're going to talk about the valuation of Bitcoin and the potential valuation of Bitcoin.
Okay.
Bitcoin recently hit the milestone of over $100,000. So many people didn't believe we would ever get to this point. And so many people in the past who have ridden through the cycles all just think we're back at the peak now and it's just ready to crash again.
Yeah.
And then you said something interesting.
Okay, I love this. Okay,
Once
comfortable.
everyone realizes this is the superior investment asset, nothing else compares. And one of the biggest reasons why is it's incorruptible. You can't print more Bitcoin. It's going to be 21 million. We're near that finite amount already. We're close to that 21 million. There's probably one more happening, I believe.
No, there's many more, but negligible already.
Right.
Negligible. Yeah.
And once that happens, it's just a matter of Bitcoin consuming every other asset.
Correct.
And fiat currency.
Correct.
And so when you think 100,000 is too high,
You're
and
looking
people
at it the
need,
wrong way.
and a lot of Filipinos need to get off of this mindset that this is 100,000, it's too expensive. I'd rather buy XRP.
Yeah.
That's bullshit. Don't
Yeah.
do that, because XRP, you can print the shit out of that.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin, you're not going to have more than 21 million.
Correct.
And so the valuation is
You can't
multiple
even
times
measure
that.
what you're saying is so true, and you can't measure it from the system that you're in right now. This is another thing I learned, is that you're trying to measure the value of Bitcoin from the system that you're in now.
You're looking at market caps, right?
No, it doesn't work that way. You see, Bitcoin, like gold, an ounce of gold in 100 years is still an ounce of gold. That never changes. It's an ounce of gold is an ounce of gold. What you're looking at is the depreciation of the dollar, not the inflation of Bitcoin.
Right.
Bitcoin is still, one Bitcoin is 1/21 millionth of the market cap or the supply. That will never change. That will always remain the same. So the reflection is just how bad the dollar is getting. That's why they say there's no top to Bitcoin, because fiat has no bottom.
Right. They said back in the days you can buy a suit for an ounce of gold.
Correct.
Back in like the 1800s.
Yes.
And today, well, now it's probably gone up. You could probably buy a pretty nice suit now, because
Yeah.
it's like at 3,500 bucks.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's still around the cost of a suit.
Yes, but the suit should. We should be living in a deflationary environment with Bitcoin. But because we are living in a modern money theory or the Keynes economics, we are in an inflationary environment by default, by design. So they need to keep the inflation going so that they can increase the money supply.
Of course.
And by increasing the money supply, they need to create new demand, because we're always growing artificially. This is where you get things like planned obsolescence, because we need to create products that don't last so that you keep on buying. This is why I hate the fiat world, because I think it attracts so many of these ugly problems. Like, you wouldn't get pharmas trying to, it's cure the patient, lose the customer, because they need to grow. Everyone's in that same frame of mind. We need to grow. Every business comes in, every CEO is tasked, how are you going to grow this? You've already gone beyond the organic growth of the company. Now you're creating artificial demand.
So you've gone all in on Bitcoin and crypto?
There's real estate, of course.
Okay.
There's real estate. That's my diversification. If I was to get a decent price for the real estate, I'd probably put into Bitcoin, because I do believe that is it's fundamentally the future that I want to be a part of, and I will vote for with my wallet.
So you're not like Chris. Chris Tan is all about putting
a
all
bit
his eggs
mixed,
in
yeah.
one basket. I still think having a balanced portfolio is important.
I know a lot of people do that, but for me, I'm just like, I don't want to invest my time and energy, and money is just time and energy in abstract form, right? That's our value in abstract form. I don't want to put my time and energy into something that someone else can print.
Absolutely.
That's all, because I'm sweating, blood, sweat, tears.
And then you're just going to rob it
And
from
some
me.
guys just do, exactly. So real estate, you can print more real estate, apparently. We didn't think that was a thing. But if you go to Manila Bay right now, you'll see real estate that didn't exist 10 years ago.
That's true.
All right. And then we've seen that with Dubai. We've seen that with everywhere. Okay, it's still at a fairly reasonable rate, meaning it's probably at the expansion of gold, 2%, 1%, something like that. But you can see that if the property values go up, they can create more. So that's
Absolutely.
with
They'll find ways
Bitcoin,
to
no
create
matter
more.
what, right? So even if, let's say, if gold went up to 100,000 an ounce, Elon's sending a rocket to an asteroid and he's blowing up some asteroids and getting gold because it's going to be worth it. It'll reach a cost, it'll make sense. With Bitcoin, it doesn't matter if it goes to 10 million, 100 million, you cannot issue more. But I just want to close on one of the points that you made about the price of Bitcoin and why you shouldn't focus on it, is because when you focus on the price, you're not looking at the value of Bitcoin. The value of Bitcoin lies 100% in the problem that it solves.
I think the question is, how many more times can it grow?
Well-
and if you look at the market cap of Bitcoin, and then you look at the market cap of all the fiat it can consume, and all the
exactly.
different assets it can consume, whether it's
Exactly.
equity or real estate,
that's how
there's
you
an
should look at it.
infinite X multiple.
That's what you should be looking at. And that's why you're not late. Because if that's the case, exactly what you pointed out, then we're looking at about 900 trillion is the rough estimate of all the capital that's tied up in the world.
Right.
Through
And
real
then-
estate,
and
bonds.
it's going to keep growing because those assets are going to keep getting inflated.
Exactly. So currently, the one that they seem to agree on is 900 trillion. Now, there's no way that Bitcoin gets 900 trillion, but even if Bitcoin gets 10% of that, that's 90 trillion.
Right.
Okay, that is 45, 50x from here.
Right.
That's just at 10%. Once it catches on and people realize that this is the pristine store of value, internationally recognized, has no boundaries, no borders. You can have a billion-dollar building in Manhattan, but you can only sell that in Manhattan. You can't sell it to somebody.
not
You
transferable.
can't
So
transfer.
is it-
So gold has its own problems as well. So Bitcoin, when the penny drops, that's when you want to have position.
Right.
You don't want to lose your position. You want to be there. That's why I would advise OFWs to start their own savings account.
I've been trying to tell this. I mean, I get a lot of questions like, how do I invest in real estate? How do I invest in real estate? And then right here in the Philippines, for a lot of Filipinos, and there's not a vehicle where you can easily get into that because the cost of entry is so high. But you got to start your investment journey somewhere. And I've been researching about the PSE. Why isn't the PSE getting more?
it's not
Why
moving, man.
isn't there more liquidity driven in PSE? We've been seeing a growth in the economy for the last 20 years, but the PSE has been trading sideways. So,
Sideways, yeah.
yeah. So people are not trusting it. Whatever. What's the next best option? Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is probably one of the best options, but everyone's so focused on the price tag.
That's why I'm. If anything I can do is try to reframe it for people,
Yeah.
because I was one like that. I saw it as that. It's 30,000. I'm too late. And then it was like 45. I'll wait till it goes back to 30. But meanwhile, it's just always falling up.
Right.
Right. Yes, it falls like this. It peaks and valleys. But then when it does do overall, since I've started investing in it, was like it's gone from. Well, the lowest I paid was 16. I'm not saying all of what I bought was 16, but I got as low as that. It's now almost 10x from that, 8x from that, or something like that. So you really do want to make sure that you are lined up and in position, because when this takes off, you will have your supply can never be diminished, meaning your value in that network will remain the same. If you own one Bitcoin, you own 1/21 millionth of that network. No matter what happens in the world, that will never change, because inflation it doesn't affect it. That's what you own of that network. So if that network becomes worth $100 trillion, what is your one Bitcoin worth?
The other thing is this, and Filipinos need to know this. You can dollar cost average into Bitcoin.
Yes.
Try dollar cost averaging into real estate.
Yes, or gold even. It's hard.
It's hard. You can't. The only way you would do it in real estate is, one, you do it into an equities fund and you don't trust that, and then, or two, you pull a bunch of people together and you invest in real estate, and then you take a small share of it. And even then, that's a lot of issues and a lot of problems and management issues, and if you're even going to make a profit on that. With this, just like equities, you can dollar cost into equity. That means that whatever discretionary income you have, you can allocate 2% of your savings every week, every month, 5%, whatever, and just keep dollar cost and building it and building it and building it. At some point, you want to have so much assets that you never have to work if you didn't need to. And then you and I, and people like us, we can do this type of stuff, not make any money. And,
Yeah.
if we do make any money, it's just spending money, right?
Yeah. But you have to get to that point where your money can work for you. But that takes a while. Your money, but you're spot on with the tokenization. There's very few assets that I can't think of another one that's as good as this in tokenization. You can put 50 pesos in, 100 pesos. I mean, I wouldn't advise doing that because some of the fees and stuff like that, but still, you can do that. I have a friend that used to go into the 7-Eleven in Alabang, and they had a machine there inside the 7-Eleven. He would buy a cornetto, and then he would put the change into Bitcoin and get Bitcoin out of that.
Right. Yeah.
That's how he would buy his Bitcoin.
Yeah, you can do that. Right?
Yeah, there was under 100 pesos he would put into that thing.
Well, they're talking about tokenizing vehicles, homes, properties, and stuff like that. What do you think about that? Would you trust any of this?
I'm very skeptical of anything where there are humans involved in it. This is why Bitcoin is a unique proposition for me and a lot of people, is because you take away that human element. That's where things for me fall apart. And in this industry, I think one of the strengths is don't trust, verify, right? With a human, you have to trust. And that human can be leaned upon, coerced, jailed, whatever, go rogue, go through a midlife crisis. So many things can happen. So your counterparty risk. So when people say Bitcoin is risky, life is risky. Everything's risky. Mm-hmm. And I'd rather, at least that risk is my own risk. It's not a counterparty risk against something that some stupid guy did or whatever. And I think what people need to also understand, aside from being tokenized, it's a bearer instrument. You hold that. There's something to be said about holding your own asset. It's not locked up in the deeds office, and then if there's a problem with that, it gets seized. No, it's yours to keep. That's how many things can you say like that? Yeah. Gold, you can say that, but then you can't transport it.
Like, I'm a believer in having a balanced portfolio, okay? Because you never know when you get hacked. Yeah. You don't know if your Bitcoin can be hacked.
Of course,
someone can steal your keys, rob you, whatnot.
Correct.
So I strongly believe in having some investment in gold, having some investment in equities and real estate and stuff like that. But I'm Filipino. There's not many good options. Bitcoin becomes a much more attractive option for people who are from the Philippines or even OFWs who
Correct.
Right? So.
Correct.
Being especially OFWs, you don't know if you're going to be in Singapore.
That's right.
You don't know if you're going to be in Dubai for the next 10 years. So don't buy that property.
And then when you come back to Manila, how are you going to get your money back there from there? You're going to lose so much.
Exactly. Just transfer in. You have your crypto wallet.
You just keep it in your head.
You take the plane and you take your whole fortune with you in the plane.
You just keep 12 words in your head and your whole fortune's there.
Yeah, right.
Scary, but again, sovereignty comes at a price, right? Yeah. You can't complain. You can't say you're a sovereign individual without any responsibility. That goes hand in hand.
Right.
But I'd rather trust myself than somebody else, because our family back in the 70s lost, my mom's family lost all their inheritance in one thing. How did that happen? I remember the company was called Congeneric. I don't know if it's what the deal was with that, but they put my grandfather had sort of sold everything that he had and migrated to Australia and had this money left, and he has 10 children, right? So he was like, okay, I'm going to take this much to Australia, but invest this much here for the children. And it was lost, and they got 10 cents to the peso.
How did it
about
get lost?
50. It just closed.
They put it into a company, basically.
Yeah, a company or an investment firm. All I remember was the name was Congeneric. I was barely a little toddler back then. Oh, wow. But my mom, that became the story of my mom's family. They kept on they revisiting that thing as, if only, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'd rather, it would suck if anything happens to Bitcoin, but that's you. I hate it when it's this counterparty risk that you did everything right, and then some other guy just blew it, right? Like in the 2008 financial crisis.
Yeah. I was telling Chris that my family are Vietnam War refugees. I was with them. I was just a baby leaving Vietnam after the war. My parents put all their gold. Wow. They had everything in the gold. They put it in my diaper. See. And then there was a lot of pirates back then because they knew people were escaping with buckets of gold or whatever. And so pirates came in, stole all of our gold.
Oh my
everything.
God,
so
really?
they had nothing.
Oh
So
my
if we had
God.
crypto, you know,
You see, and then the Holocaust after that, they said a lot of the Jewish people were putting them in their teeth
Right.
and stuff like that. But that's the problem that Bitcoin solves.
Right.
It becomes it's portable. It's nothing more portable than Bitcoin.
Right.
Nothing more. It's as fungible as anything else out there. Like it's more fungible, but then it's highly fungible. And then you've got it's divisible down to 100 million.
your family is not Spanish. They're from.
Yeah, they're from like my mom's family's Filipino, so but with a little bit of that Spanish, like
Okay.
trace through there. I'm not sure how far back down.
You guys are British.
But my dad's British, so like my mom's family, they're Filipino, but they would speak Spanish at home. But that was more the time, that era that that was still considered a national or a very popular language. But yeah, dad's British.
And then you lived in Australia for a little while.
Then I lived in Australia for about
Okay.
12 years.
Yeah.
So I'm
and your kids, they're Filipino.
New Zealanders.
They're New Zealanders.
They're New Zealanders, yeah.
Ah, okay.
Because I'm British and my ex-wife is New Zealander, and they were born here.
Okay.
So being born here doesn't give them any citizenship rights, and also being born to a British father, who was born to a British father, I can't hand down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's called British by descent. So I'm British, but I wasn't born in England, so I took my dad's citizenship. So now I can't hand my citizenship down. It ends with me, unless of course my kids were born in England. Then I could, but they were born here, so then they took on the New Zealand citizenship.
And they have the Filipino citizenship. Of
No.
course. Oh, they don't.
They cannot. Yeah.
But your wife isn't. Okay.
My ex is New Zealander.
But you can get the Filipino passport and citizenship.
Yes, I can, but if I can't, like them just by birth, they can't.
Right.
And I had to have had that on my passport when they were born.
So if you get your Filipino citizenship, then they can have it.
I'm not sure how that works. Maybe, but I think they might have to apply like a naturalization. I don't think it's an automatic guarantee. But I will look into that if they have to do anything to perfect that citizenship.
How many kids do you have now?
3.
3 boys, girls.
I have 2 boys and a girl.
How old are they?
26, 21, 19.
Well, you're pretty passionate about your kids because I just saw you got a dad podcast.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Oh yeah, well they're obviously my life, my reason for being type of thing. And so we just got into this podcast because a group of friends had decided that one guy in particular who has a daddy community called Legend Daddy. He started this community because when he had kids, and his kids are quite young, he was looking everywhere for daddy groups, and all he found were mommy groups. Everywhere he went was just mommy groups. No shortage of that. But dad groups, the very, very few that he found were kind of maniacs, they call them. Like they'd be talking about girls and stuff. It's like that's not what I'm here to discuss real life problems. So he started his own, and then he eventually said to me, "Would you like to join this?" We would start a podcast, and I was like, okay, I'm willing to try something new, because outside of I've been in transport, that's my main thing, but fine, let's give it a shot. I just want to have fun with it and help dads that are, I'm not saying I know more than you, I'm just a little further down the road maybe.
Right.
That's it.
I definitely, we know a guy who does dad bud, and I was talking to him, and I was like, dude, well, I wish I had this going through, my breakup.
Yeah.
Because it's tough trying to stay involved in your kid's life when you're separating, and then you have problems with the ex.
Yeah.
And then you don't get to see your kids as much, and then all of a sudden, she's telling them bad things about you, and that gets tough.
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah.
And it's just, and no one's gonna listen to you because you're the dad.
Yes,
Everyone has enough sympathy for the mom. The mom is like,
Yes, that's true. And I think maybe a little more true here in a way. Like somehow if there's a breakup, it's assumed that it's the dad's fault.
Right.
That's almost just by default.
Right. Oh, and then you separate, it automatically goes to, the custody goes to the mom most of the time.
Almost
right?
100%. I think she has to pretty much like be.
And
like
sometimes it's not fair. Or sometimes she could be kind of crazy, you know, whatever, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta give credit to my ex. She never, you know, she's been very good with that. So the kids never felt this turbulence during the. It's painful. Separations are always painful, but there was never any games played like that. So I have to give her full credit for that. That she just never let our problems get in.
Yeah, that's
never
great.
involved.
You're
them.
lucky.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of, and
Yeah.
we never had any lawyers involved in so I do consider myself very lucky. I've heard of horror stories, and yes, I do want to share these experiences now because I know a lot of men, they suffer in silence, and they really, there's these stigmas around, you know, talking about your problems and
Well,
stuff.
yeah, you're a man. You're kind of a pussy if you complain about your problems, right? So.
But this just makes them feel even more isolated, right? And then they just end up thinking, and then we're all playing the same game, this facade that, you know, oh, just wear it, just, you know, don't be a pussy and all that. And you're like, no, these people end up either doing the worst things possible, like, you know, harming themselves. The Legend Daddy community Facebook just recently did this, which I think is kind of good, could also be bad. Anonymous. So you're part of a Facebook group. Before, your name would come out, right? So you'd still be like guarded. Now it's anonymous. So yes, the actual moderator can see it, but nobody else can see your name. So you can ask the questions that other people are asking or that you're too embarrassed to ask. And we get a lot of questions, and we get a lot of confessions and stuff like that. And there's a lot of pain out there. And that's what drives us, is trying to, you know, be, if any way, helpful for that. And I think Rafi says it well when he says, we want to be there at your next step of fatherhood, whatever that may look like.
That's awesome. I'm definitely going to check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Thank you for your time again, James.
No problem at all.
Always love having you back and talking Bitcoin.
You know, we could talk forever I could talk under wet cement
Bitcoin.
about this, but, you know, I just want to end by saying it's like, if you could start, you've heard of these Bitcoin treasury companies, I'm sure, right? MicroStrategy and all these.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the big thing now, right? Be your own treasury company. If you can do that, eventually, it seems crazy now, but if you can just keep putting away, eventually you're going to build that nest egg enough that you can be your own bank. And if you could be the bank for your family, oh my gosh. I mean, it's going to change everything.
Yeah. And there's so many companies here that are cash rich. Yeah, the good balance sheet, tons of cash. Put some of that in Bitcoin.
Put some of that in Bitcoin.
You know, I mean, shoot, it's better than watching your money deflate.
And one last thing, AI.
Yeah.
AI is coming in. AI overnight has turned knowledge into zero cost.
Commodity,
right?
yeah.
But it's worth nothing now, right?
Yeah.
Before, we used to have so much advantage over what knowledge we possessed, right? That's what gave us the edge. But now they basically evaporate into nothing. And this is just going to get worse and worse. So ask yourself, in an age of abundance, because that's what it's going to be, scarcity becomes even more important.
Absolutely.
And there's only two things that you really can't print. That's time and Bitcoin.
Well, there's one more. There's attention. There will
That
be
scarcity
a
of attention.
scarcity of attention.
Of course.
This is why branding comes into play. Nowadays, with all the AI and just the plethora of content that's going to be out there, the only chance you have is to build a personal brand.
Exactly. If I just want information,
Yeah.
it's free. It's at the tip of my fingers. If I want your opinion, and I respect your opinion, well, there's only one place to get that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So awesome. So if you like this podcast, make sure you give us a comment. Let us know what you really think about, crypto. Let us know what you think about what's happening with this Makati subway, because I'm still trying to figure this out. Let us know why you think Makati and Taguig canceled the subway. See you in the next podcast.